All right. Good morning, everyone. I just want to confirm you guys can hear my voice and see my screen here before we get started. In the GoToMeeting session, there's a little chat, or you can always enable your microphone to let me know that you can hear me.
I'm okay.
Perfect. All right. A few more are logging in here. We're just going to give them a second to log in. Jennifer, Rob, thank you so much for the reply there. So I'm just going to go ahead and introduce myself. I'm just going to close this slide here, maximize the screen here. Good morning to all of you. Hopefully, you guys are all doing good. Hopefully, everyone is nice and healthy. My name is Mike. I'll be your instructor here today. We are here to talk about iOS Photo Editing 101. So, we're going to talk about, again, a little bit of things that can maybe potentially make you create better pictures just right off your phone. I've been with the Eloquent team for close to 7 years now and instructor in general for close to 10 years. But we're all at home here. We are all going a little bit of stir crazy, maybe. So, thank you for joining us on today's session. Hopefully, you guys are going to enjoy it, and we're just going to go ahead and jump in there and just kind of get started here. So, some of the things I'm going to talk about is the iOS photo settings on your phone. So, again, this is specifically for iPhone. So, again, iOS photo settings is something that we're going to talk about. Now, not all the options that you're going to see here today might be available for you depending on the device you have. So I just want to mention that I am going to be using an iPhone 10 here today, which has dual cameras. So it does give me the ability to create portrait photos, which we're going to talk about. If you have an older device, it is possible that is not an option. If you have a newer device, then yes, you will have those options available to you if you have two cameras behind your phone. But either way, the techniques and the apps that we're going to be using, it doesn't matter if you have an older device or a new device. It's going to work just the same for the other things. So we're going to talk about techniques as well on a little bit about how to take better pictures in general as well, how to be different, how to be a little creative as well. We're also going to talk about the iOS native photo app and how to manipulate pictures using that and third-party applications. And no, I'm not talking about Instagram with filters. I'm talking about photo manipulation using third-party apps to enhance pictures that you've taken with your phone, and not just slap a Instagram filter on it to try to make it look better. So again, that's what we're going to discuss in the next hour. Of course, we are going to have time for some questions as well. Feel free to enable your microphone at any point in time to join the conversation. If you have a comment, a question, if you want to just argue with me, that's okay. I like the back and forth. It's why I do what I do. So my only request for you guys today is if you want to speak up, if you have a question, if you have a comment, don't be shy. Okay, you guys are here to learn and hopefully have a good time while you're doing it. Now, just a little warning: I am at home, so there is little dogs walking around here, so I'm going to try to reduce that noise as much as possible. But bear with me a little bit on that part, on that end. So, good morning to all of you, and let's get started here. So, I do have the ability to share my screen here on my phone screen on my screen for you guys to be able to witness and look at throughout the day. So that is the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to slide this open, maximize this so you guys have access to my phone. So first thing I want to talk about is the setting itself. Before you even start taking pictures, a lot of people buy the phone and then they just leave the setting as be. But it does potentially reduce the amount of options you have on how to manipulate a picture. So the first thing I'm going to go is in the settings app here. And in the settings app, you're going to scroll down all the way down to where you see your camera. So again, if you have a hard time finding it, okay, the one thing a lot of people don't know about is you can actually just slide up, or slide down, I should say, to reveal the search in the settings. And this is probably a feature nobody uses that is available for you guys to access at any point in time. And then you could actually just search for camera, and it's going to find you the settings for the cameras and things like that. So again, little trick there. But I'm just going to go ahead and scroll down, find the camera, which is right in the middle of the screen at this point, and hit the camera settings here. And here we have options for video and again for pictures as well. So preserve settings is an option here, camera mode. So again, it's going to remember if you last took a picture or last took a video and go back to it either way. Now, the option I really want to talk about here is the live photo, which preserves the live photo settings rather than automatically resetting the live photo to turn on. Live photo does give you the ability to kind of have a little bit more flexibility about your when you take pictures. Maybe the moment you hit that snap button wasn't exactly ideal. So live photo will give you the ability to kind of change the picture that you took from a second before or a millisecond after. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility. So if somebody like closed their eyes quickly, well, you can actually select a moment before or a moment after when their eyes is open. So it's an option that I definitely want to have on here. But again, this is all preserved from the last time you used the application. Now, a lot of people sometimes take pictures and they're crooked. So this is where the grid can come in handy, which is going to create a grid on the screen to help you potentially line up your images a little bit better. I'll turn it on here so you can kind of see what exactly that means. Now, scan Q code has nothing to do with taking pictures. We do have record video and slow-mo video. Today is more about pictures. We do have another course later on that talks about the video side of things. So I'll leave that for that. And then the formats. This is the big one here. If I go in format, I do have some options to use high efficiency or most compatible. And if you're going to take your pictures outside of the Apple world, if you will, you probably want to choose most compatible, which is going to give you the ability to kind of use those pictures and videos in more situations on more applications. More and more applications are starting to support Apple's new formats. So it is something that will reduce the file size. So if you're running low on memory on your phone and you want to take pictures with the same quality, but potentially not able to modify or edit pictures on different software, at that point you might want to keep it to most compatible. But if you're running low on space, high efficiency will take the same quality pictures for less amount of space on your phone. All right, at the bottom here we have Auto HDR. HDR stands for High Dynamic Range. For anybody that doesn't know exactly what that means, it means it's going to have darker darks and brighter brights. So there's going to be more range in color in your pictures, and it really typically makes the picture pop. So if you have a lot of colors in a lot of different colors in the picture, HDR will definitely go and make that picture stand out even more by increasing the different brightness and different colors. They're going to be more vivid, if you will. Not every phone has that option, however. Okay. So again, some of the settings in the camera app itself. Okay. Now, of course, we do have photos as well. And at that point, photos gives you the ability to decide where you're going to save your images. And it's more how things will actually be uploaded to the cloud if you're saving it to the cloud. I'm a Google Drive user, so I typically save my images on Google Drive. So that's why my iCloud Photos is not on here. But again, this is more for storage purposes. So if you are going to store your content on the cloud, just know that when it comes to photos and videos, again, I've had an iPhone since 2007 or 2008, I should say. So the cloud to me is not an option that's really available because I would have to pay quite a bit of money to actually have iCloud that supports all those images. So Google Drive is a little bit cheaper on that end. So I upload to Google Drive instead. But again, it's up to you to kind of decide what you kind of prefer. Now, I don't, again, want to really talk about too many settings in this one because it's more saving, and then we're talking more taking pictures and manipulating pictures today's class. But the view full HDR, obviously, if you're going to take HDR pictures, you want to be able to view them in HDR. So automatically adjust the display to show the complete dynamic range on your photos when you're manipulating them needs to be on. So when you're in the photo app, you want to see that high quality, high dynamic range. And some people have that off. So again, just wanted to come and jump in there. So again, let's go ahead and take a look at the camera app itself now. You're going to notice that the grid system is on, and I'm just going to go ahead and aim this at this other camera right here. So again, this is going to help me line up the picture, okay, so that it's nice and straight. However, some of the settings I want to talk about are at the top right now. Okay, so the first one all the way to the top left is our lightning bulb, which is all about the light, right? If you can avoid using a flash, avoid using flash at all costs, okay? Because again, a flash will create artificial light, which is not as good as natural light. So if you have the ability to not use the flash, that's always better. But in some situations, you won't have a choice. If you're in a very dark room or something like that, then you can definitely turn that flash on. Now, the next one here, I'm just going to keep it to auto here, is the big one, which is, again, this is live preview. So if I take a picture, okay, and some have a moving object, this is where it's going to give you a little bit more flexibility on how to potentially select a moment right before or right after you hit that shutter button to take the picture, which is going to give you control on potentially the end result, the end picture you're going to have. So again, we're going to have a little bit of example of this a little bit later. We then have a timer, which again gives us the ability to create a timer. It's not something I use very, very often, but it can be useful. I have an Apple Watch, so one of the things that you can do with an Apple Watch is you can take a picture with your watch from your phone. So I don't really need to use this too often, but for other people, it can be quite useful. We then have, again, the ability to add filters. And yes, you can add filters before taking a picture. I honestly do not recommend it. All of these things you can do after. So you are actually restricting yourself with your picture by adding filters prior taking a picture than afterwards. You can always manipulate a picture afterwards, but if you choose one of these settings, you're losing the ability to go back to the normal picture and then manipulate the picture in a completely different way. So I actually don't recommend using that color setting at any point in time if you ever want to do touch-ups or manipulate your pictures afterwards. Now at the bottom, there's three settings I kind of want to talk about. There's the default photo, which obviously you can see that I'm on right now. But if I slide to the right, you're going to notice portrait. And portrait, again, uses two cameras. So in this case, it's using both cameras behind my phone here to create more of a depth of field for my objects. So I'm going to, again, have an example of this, which is going to allow me to concentrate on a specific item, and that specific item will pop a lot more because the background will be actually a little bit blurred out to, again, really focus on that specific object. Now, it's not happening right now because, again, I'm too close to the object, and the rest of the content here that you see doesn't really show much. It's just a void background. So I'm going to have help from Chris Neal a little bit later. That he's going to help me out on showing you exactly what I mean by creating depth of field. Okay. Now we have Square. Square takes square pictures. This is very useful if you are going to take pictures for Instagram, as again, that format is a square picture. It's the same square pictures. I think Apple really introduced this exactly for that reason for social media. Again, it's something that you can definitely use. And then we have Panorama, which again, we're going to show a little bit later, which is pretty self-explanatory. You can create a panorama pretty easily. So again, these are all the settings on the phone before you even start taking pictures. Now, if any of you have a comment or question regarding any of these settings before we continue, by all means, let me know. All right. So, like I promised, I'm going to be using Chris Neal here to help me out take pictures. And you're going to notice the first thing I'm going to do is try to increase the amount of light that's coming in the room. Now, if I move just over here, okay, you can notice the blinds are closed, which again means I'm going to be using a lot of light from the inside of the house. I want to use as much natural light as possible. That natural light is a lot better than the artificial light that are inside our house. Whenever you take pictures inside your house with a lot of the lights, your ceiling lights, they're going to create this yellow look. Okay. And the first thing you're going to need to do after you get rid of that yellow look is, well, the first thing you're going to want to do when you want to rebuild that picture after that is to get rid of that yellow look. So try to avoid having that look when you're actually taking the picture. It's going to be a lot easier to manipulate the picture afterwards. So you try to take the picture as well as possible before you even get to the applications that you're going to use to adjust the color and saturation and things like that we're going to talk about a little bit later. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to open the blinds up, create more light coming out from the inside, from the outside. So the next thing I want to talk about is the location you're actually positioning yourself. Most people, when taking a picture, if I were to ask you to take a picture, you would just put the picture, the camera about your shoulder view. Most people take a picture at shoulder view and just snap the picture. So a picture would look something like this. But that's not a very interesting picture. This is a pretty dull looking picture. There's nothing to it. I did take the picture. Somebody asked me to take a picture of Chris Neal. I took the picture of Chris Neal, but it's boring. There's nothing there. So I'm going to try to create a little bit more of a dynamic picture by positioning myself in an angle that the human eye is not usually there. So again, in this situation, I'm going to move myself down. And once again, this is a little bit of a better picture right here. Again, I'm closer to the object, of course, and then again, it's just a better angle all around. So don't be afraid to get on the floor, create some dynamic images by just repositioning yourself before you even start taking the pictures themselves. Now, one of the things I do like to do as well is potentially add a bit of a foreground element that you take the picture through a foreground element, and you can kind of take any object to kind of create a little bit more interesting picture as well, just by having foreground elements that are somewhat visible, but again, don't overtake the picture. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a flower to, again, create that effect. So I'm going to go back here in my camera. And again, in this case, I'm trying to shoot through the flower a little bit just to add a little bit to the picture. In most situations, I would take the time to move the pillow that my English bulldog just moved. I moved it earlier, but he decided to take his spot back. But again, so again, Other things that you can potentially do is, again, add just a little water bottle. Try to add some glare to the picture, some light bouncing. You can even use some, in this case, I don't have a lot of light because I'm inside, but when you're outside, you could even use pieces of paper to bounce the light back in the lens to create some artificial lens flare. But they're actually real lens flare coming from the sun instead of you having to edit and modify that and add it after in post-production. So when you are actually taking the picture, put a little bit of time, create a little bit more dynamic, more original image. Now I'm going to talk about the options when it comes to the portrait mode. And again, this is going to add the depth of field, and it is going to give me more control in post-production. I want to repeat that not all phones will have the ability to do this. So if your phone has it, great. If it doesn't, you can still go on with the rest of the class. It's not going to change anything. But it is something that I kind of quickly want to talk about. And the first thing is your item does need to be lined up in a pretty specific location. Now, Apple actually says it at the top, place subject within 2.5 meters away. And in this case, you have the ability to, again, play around with some special effects here, down here. And again, I'm just going to go ahead and show that off using our little model here, Chris Neal. So if you take a look at some of these images, you can see here the Chris Neal is really focused versus the object in the background are all blurred out. And again, the focus is 100% on this little Chris Neal versus the content in the background. And that's what portrait mode allows you to do. Other options is, this is a hit or miss, as you can see, not so good in this situation here. Once again, it tried to remove the background, unsuccessfully, I might add. But if you take a look at other portrait options here, again, Chris Neal stands out. In this case, we're back to the non-portrait. So you can really see the difference in the background here. Now, if I take a look, when I'm moving between images here, I do see some motion, and that motion is live picture, as some of you know, if not all of you know. And if, of course, I hold on my phone, it's going to play the before frames and after frames that I selected when I hit the shutter to take the picture. So one of the options that you have is to adjust the picture that you've taken by a few frames before and after. And you do that by hitting the edit button at the bottom here. So I need to kind of zoom out here because I just noticed that you're only seeing part. Let's go in the photo app, recent, and here it is. So I'm going to hit the edit, which is at the top right corner here. And this is going to allow me to adjust a few different things. First and foremost, I can select a different frame from the picture. So at the bottom, we have the live picture option that we can click on. It's the circles within a circle, within a circle, the little dash circle. And now I can actually adjust which frame I really want to keep. So if I find that somebody blinked, obviously Chris Neal is not going to blink, he's a perfect model. But if I switch it to a different frame, I can make that frame the picture, the primary picture. So then I would just click on make key photo. And at that point, this is a new photo for this picture. It's no longer going to look at the other one, it's going to look at this one. Now, other options that we have below here are adjustments. And yes, you are going to be tempted to hit that auto, right? Just auto do everything for me. And it could be a good start for you to play around with. But again, what we want to do here is talk about other options if I want to really control how the image is going to look. So I'm not going to use this picture for this example here. I have a different picture in mind. And of course, I can hit cancel here and discard the changes that I've made. And I'm just going to go grab a different picture here that I had in mind for today's session. So just want to move this off the screen just for a second. And move it back on the screen. So we have a picture of my youngest daughter here, and I'm going to go ahead and manipulate it. There's a few things I'm going to notice. It is taken with portrait, which means I'm using both cameras, and I am using HDR in this case as well. But what I'd like to do here is make the colors pop a little bit more. She's wearing a pink pants. I really want to make that pink really stand out, pop. Maybe even make the clouds a little bit more blurry if I wanted to, if I could. Just give this picture a little bit more life. Okay, so she's nice and smiling here. So I want to make sure everybody's aware that this is an exciting picture. I'm going to hit the edit button at the top. And because it's a portrait image, I can manipulate the portrait options right off the bat. So you can see I have this extra square option on the bottom left corner now. This only becomes available if you've taken the picture with portrait. And now I can actually manipulate the image a little bit better. And you can actually see right there, the studio light adds that color to my subject. And she's my subject here. And you can see here, I'm already making the picture a little bit better, the focus on her rather than just the background. It's adding emphasis on her. If I go down, I have contour light, which again creates that ambient around her. I prefer the studio light in this case. Then we have sometimes quite some messy effects here. So again, in this case, the stage light and the stage light mono, definitely not a go. So I'm going to go with the studio light. That's my first thing I'm going to do here. And I'm going to hit the adjustment layer. And the adjustment options give me the ability to apply different exposure options, balance options, highlight options, shadow options, contrast options, brightness options, black point options, saturation options, vibrant options, warmth options, tint options, sharpness options, definition, noise reduction, and vignette. Now, less is more, in my opinion, for all of these. So I'm going to go through some, if not all, but again, just to talk about the adjustments. So it's pretty easy to use. Obviously, Apple has made it quite easy. You would select it, and then you slide to the left or slide to the right to increase the exposure or decrease the exposure. So again, if I go left, in this case, we're going a darker look and bright. Maybe this is the type of look I want, maybe really bright skies in this case. I do like the sky, so I don't want to completely overexpose it, but I might increase the brightness just a tad. Less is more again. So next up here, we have the ability to do the same thing for her, okay, for our subject. So I think it looked pretty good right off the bat, so I might not touch this too much, honestly. In this case, maybe a tad. We have the highlight, which again affects our background here, okay? And in this case, again, I don't really want to play with the highlight too much. I don't think I need any adjustments for the highlight. I definitely don't want to create this weird effect. I might actually just leave it to the default value 0. The shadows, which usually typically finds the blacks and either brightens the blacks or darkens the black. So if I go on the left side, my blacks will be blacker, and on the right side, my blacks will be brighter. Okay, so you can see here, once again, not much in this case. I might want to add a little bit of black for her shirt. So you're going to notice more, not on her face, more on the shirt. Make it a darker dark. So that's going to make the brighter colors stand out. So again, you can see here it's a little bit more washed out, but if I make it a little darker, the colors on her shirt, the yellow, the pink, the red, those color pop a little bit more. If I go to the next option, which is contrast, now this is where a lot of people overdo the contrast. So they go all the way up or all the way down. If you typically go all the way down, everything becomes kind of blurry and washed out. You go all the way to the top, everything becomes crisp. And so this is definitely one that's a less, okay? You might want to, maybe if you find that the person has too much detail on his face, you want to maybe add a little bit of blurriness to it, if you will. You can actually reduce the contrast a little bit. And it's going to create a smoother looking picture. But once again, less is more. Brightness is pretty self-explanatory, but in this case, it applies to the whole image. Okay? So I might want to reduce it just a tad, just to get better colors on her face, a more natural color on her face. Moving on to the black point, again, in this case, I'm taking a look at the options I have on her. This is not affecting the background. And again, I'm going to try to make those colors pop. So I'm going to go maybe a tad to the right here to increase the black points. Saturation is how much color do we want to see? And this is where a lot of people will just, okay, I'm going to throw all the colors out there. And again, now her face is not realistic at all. So this is, again, trying to find the right balance. Maybe add, I do like pictures that do add saturations. I do like nice high color contrast. But you want to keep it realistic. So don't use the shirt here or her pants as a point of judgment. Take a look at her face. And at one point, her face will become red. And that's definitely not, or even orange red. That's not the look I want, that's for sure. I want her face to still look real, but it still increases the brightness of the color, the saturation, add more colors to the image to make it pop. So I'm looking at her face here to find the right balance. And I think maybe that's a little high. Let's go a little bit lower. Oop, a little bit lower. And there you go. Then we have vibrant, which again, in this case, creates a little bit more pop for the background or less. So again, we're adjusting here the color here for mainly the background, a little bit of the foreground as well. The warmth, so the more you go with the warmth, the more orange you're going to get. The more you go to the left, the bluer your image is going to get. So this is a great adjustment. If you ever take pictures inside and your image is very, very, very yellow, this is the one I recommend you go to in this app to adjust that yellowness, to reduce the amount of yellow you have in a picture. Go to the warmth. That's the first setting you, well, maybe the brightness first, but the warmth will help you reduce that yellow by going to the left in this case, okay? So again, depending on her face, I'm trying to create the right color for her face. The clothes I worry about next. The tint. In this case, we have some purple coming in, and then on the other side, we have some green. So it was actually pretty good right off the bat, so I don't have to do anything to it. Sharpness, again, add more detail to image. However, if you go too much, everything becomes very pixelated, okay? So if I, there we go. If I go too much here, very hard to see, but if I were to zoom in on her face, you can see here, there's too much sharpness to it. If I go more to the left, it becomes smoother. So you can see here, her face is nice and smooth. If I increase the sharpness to the max, everything becomes a little pixelated. So in this case, I don't want to add any sharpness. Definition, again, find these shadows and create more of the definition on those shadows. Keep hitting the wrong. There we go. So I don't really find the need for any in this case. Noise reduction, I don't really have noise, but this is going to try to smooth out the image. So again, now she's blurry. Again, it's hard to see if you're not zoomed in, but she's all blurry. Okay, so that's too much. And my application just crashed. That's not good. I probably lost the settings for this. And I did. Well, that's not good. All that adjustment is gone. I'm just going to go quickly do it again here. All right. Now, the vignette here is something that a lot of people overdo. In this setting, in this option in the iOS app, there's again two options. You can slide it to the left to create a white vignette. So you can kind of see it at the top left, bottom right. The top right is a little less obvious. But if I go the other way, I can create a black vignette. Now, it's not too bad here because even at the extreme level, it's still subtle. So that's not too bad. But in some applications, we're going to talk a little bit later, you can create a pretty harsh vignette. Don't go with the 1980 look, okay? It's 2020. Okay, the 1980 look is 40 years ago. So we don't need to create the hard vignette anymore. So just go subtle on it, and there it is. Now, once you're done your main adjustments here, this is where you can actually see the before and after by holding your finger on top of the picture. So if I hold on top of the picture here, I will be able to see the before and after. So the original and the after. The original and the after. So again, I'm just tapping on the image. So before, after. And you can see, but hopefully it's a little bit less washed out, right? It looks, the colors pop a little bit more. It's still subtle, but everything pops a little bit more, create a little bit more life into the picture here. Once you're done, you hit the done button, obviously, and you're good to go. You have that image that you can share on your social media feed. Now, in this case, I do want a little bit of the background. I do want the sky to really show that she's climbing. But one other option, of course, that you have is the ability to crop. And this is, again, something that Apple has done very, very well is the automatic crop. So you actually notice when I hit the crop, it automatically adjusted the orientation. However, I can play with that orientation even more. So if I want to create maybe of a more unique image, that's something that I could potentially do as well. So you can play around with the orientation. Apple will try to do it automatically for you. You can see here the auto option at the top that you can tap on and off. And if you've ever taken a picture in the wrong orientation, yes, I'm talking to you guys, taking the picture in the wrong orientation, well, this is where we have the rotate at the top left. So don't delete the image. You can still salvage it. Nice option at the top left to rotate the image. So again, cropping options. Now, if you are going to share on social media, you took the image in photo mode, but you want to crop the image to a different size. That's where the top right option comes in, where you can actually take a look at different aspect ratio, the original, the freeform where I can just click and drag however I feel like, the square for Instagram, for example, the 9:16, which is the opposite of your phone when you have it in landscape mode or your TV. Then you have the famous, okay, 5:7 image for if you want to ever print your images. 3x4 images, 3x5 images, and 2x3 images. So you can actually kind of crop your images before you go and print them out. So I'm going to leave it back to the original one here. And then maybe I want to do some auto orientation to kind of straighten up the image a little bit. Once I'm happy again, I can hit done. Now I do want to talk about the last option here that you have at the bottom. These are filters, just like for, the filters that you would see in Instagram or Snapchat. These are predefined filters to potentially make the image look completely different very, very quickly with very little amount of effort. And again, they can be nice when you're in a rush. Okay, the black and white look. In this case, I definitely want to, once I pick one of these, I would go and adjust some of the settings we talked about before, because right now her face is way too dark. There's no detail in her face. I can't see her eyes. So in this case, if I were to choose some of these filters, I'd have to go back and play with some of the settings to increase the brightness in her face so that I can still see her face. So in this case, I don't want to do that. So when I'm happy, I just hit done. And that's the gist of the settings for the native application that's on your phone. So top right, you hit your edit button. So someone has potentially two devices turned on at the same time and both of them on. So just careful with that.
Mike, I have a question.
Go ahead.
You did an adjustment to one picture. Well, let's say you took three pictures of the same environment. Could you use the setup you use for one and apply it to the other two?
That would be
save you time.
That would be a fantastic option. We're still waiting for that.
Thank you.
All right, very good. So again, in this case, I have the settings. Again, you could potentially take a look at the settings that you set up for the original picture, and then quickly, okay, I put 4 here, 7 here, 9 there. So it might be a little bit quicker going through the next two pictures that you took. That'd be a great option though, right? If you were able to potentially export your image settings for other images, that's a great potential feature in the future. Now, if you ever wanted to add some markup on this image, in this case, I definitely do not want to add markup for this image, but if you ever wanted to, that's where the markup option is. I would select a different image for this. So let's say I really want to point out this logo to people. So I want to circle that logo. At the top right, I'm going to hit the edit here. And I'm then going to hit the 3 ellipsis button at the top right. On the right side of the word adjust, we have the 3 ellipsis button that we can click on. This is going to allow us to use this image in other application, and markup is one of the options. So if I hit markup, I'm going to say yes, turn off live image. So this will turn off live image for this image, which means I will lose the ability to adjust the frame prior or after. So this is something I would need to make sure I do correctly before I convert this to a non-live picture. So I will convert it, no problem. And then it gives me the ability to just draw in the image. So at the bottom here, we have the pen, we have the highlighter, we have another different pen, we have the eraser, and we have the pencil and the ruler. So the ruler gives you the ability to kind of play around, maybe create a ruler line here to create some straight lines. That's as straight as it gets right there for me. There we go. We got a good one. Well, that's the first dog moment right there. There you go. All right. So again, you have the ability to kind of play around with the color as well, to change the color, to really emphasize it. Get rid of that ruler. Okay. So cancel. I definitely don't want to do that. but some options. So let's talk about third-party applications now. In the third-party application side of things, we have the photo and video, and I have a lot of different photo applications here. I'm not going to talk about every single one of them. I'm going to talk about two Lightroom, and we have LD, which gives us the ability to add some effects. So I'm going to go ahead and Lightroom first. And in Lightroom, I'm going to take a look at this image here, and you can see here she, once again, we have a picture of my oldest daughter, and it's a great picture, but it's missing the life. I'd like to add a little bit more, make this image pop a little bit more. So in Lightroom, we have even more control in this case about how to manipulate the image. Now we have some healing features and things like that. In this case, I don't want to fix anything. I just want to adjust the colors. And Lightroom is great for that. Now we have the auto options again. If I hit the auto, you can see it increase the brightness a little bit on her. I have the undo button at the top. But once again, I have very similar options. But in Lightroom, I have a little bit more control over them. Okay, so if I take a look, I don't want to take a look at this. We have the exposure, which again increases or decreases the exposure. In this case, I might go a little bit more to the left. Contrast, more to the right. The highlights. So I'm kind of tweaking the same options here. But this is where the fun part goes. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and adjust the colors. And in the colors here, we have the ability to choose as shot, auto, or custom. But if I click mix, this is where I can adjust, and this is the brilliant part of Lightroom. I can adjust every color on this image individually. So the red, orange, the yellow, the green, I can adjust them all individually. So I really want to make that pink stand out. So I might go find that pink here and increase the saturation. And I'm increasing the saturation of her dress and nothing else in that image. Okay, maybe her face if I go a little too far. But you can see that I'm targeting the pinks alone and adjusting that pink to maybe increase her pink of her dress a little bit more. Now, if I want to address, let's say the greens, I want the greens to maybe pop a little bit more. That fish has a lot of green in there. I'm going to select the green here. I can maybe change the color of that green to be more yellow. No, more green, a little bit more PGA Tour look here. Eh? So again, I'm adjusting the greens alone in this case. And this is where Lightroom really, really shines, is the ability to adjust individual colors like this. And again, I can really wash the greens out or really make the greens pop. So I will make the green pops a little bit more. I can find the yellow in this case as well and adjust that. Maybe put it brown, or in this case, it's in the trees in the back. You can really see I can make it look a little bit more like fall or a little bit more like summer. Okay, it's the green, the yellows in the back. There's not a lot in the foreground. So I can individually select colors in this case in Lightroom, and which is something that a lot of applications don't have. And you can do that with just by hitting the color tab at the bottom and mix. Now, Lightroom is not a free application. There are some free options, but in this case, this is the premium option. So you do have the ability to download Lightroom for free, but for more control, you'd have to, I believe it's $9.99 for Photoshop and Lightroom on a desktop, and then at that point you can sign in on your mobile device as well for free. So that's an option that you have here. Okay. So if I go find a different image, in this case, I want to go to favorites. I'm just going to move this back down just for a second. Find the image I was looking for here. For some reason it disappeared. One more second. Might have to use a different one if I can't find it. I had it loaded and closed on me. Okay, I'll use a different one. So I'll bring this one back up. Not quite the one I wanted, but still going to work. So I'm going to use Lightroom to fix here the colors of her face. There's too much red, again, on her face. So again, I can come in here and I can adjust the light. The light is fine. Maybe I want to increase the brightness a little bit on her face. These are things we already talked about. And again, less is more. The color is the one I want to adjust here. So the temperature is definitely on the redder side here. So if I want to reduce that a little bit, but if I want more control, once again, I have the ability to go to the mix. Now, if you want the white balance to kind of be fixed, what you want to do is you hit that little dropper here at the top right of the settings, and I can actually go and select the white area of the screen to let Lightroom trying to figure out the white balance. It's again, in this case, the cloud is a little bit blue, so I probably don't want to do this. Okay, I'm going to go back to Add Shot, adjust it manually. So I'm going to go ahead and go click on the mix. It gives me control here, and I want to adjust the red and maybe apply. And you can see here it's more red, so I want to go to the right. In this case, I'm looking at her face, trying to reduce that amount of red that I see on her face, and that looks a lot better. We do have some effects here that we can play around in Lightroom, but for the effects, this is typically where I want to go in a different application. So I'm going to go ahead and export this image and just save it wherever you feel like saving it. Now, again, in this case, I could share it, save it. At the top right, we have some options here as well to create some slideshows and some settings. Right now, I just want to go ahead and export it. Export to your camera roll, which means it's just back in my photos. And it's saving a new picture. So it's not overwriting the original pictures, it's saving a brand new picture. And this is where an application like Lens Distort can really create some different look for your image to create some different effects. If I select that image that I talked about, maybe I want to make this stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to talk about adding some lens flare. So if I click on the effect here, you can see I can add a lens flare, and then I can move that lens flare around. You can see I can just click and drag on my image here to kind of create some different effect. I don't really want the brightness too much, but I do like that little sparkle, right? Now I can increase the lens flare by pinching in or pinching out. So the size of the lens flare, again, maybe it's coming through the trees, the sun's. And again, don't want to go too much. So if you don't like that look, All right, sorry about that. So again, we do have different options. So however, if I can choose a different one, has a different look, and I can move it around. I can rotate it as well. And you can see here I'm putting the light behind her instead. And there's quite a few for free. This is an application that you can download for free. And if you don't like that look, that's fine. They have different ones. So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of this one, delete it, and I'm going to go to next styles. In this case, we have definitely a more obvious one. Kind of reduce and rotate. That's not the look you're going for. There's a lot of the other ones like overlays. We have some fog. Create some effect here for some fog. It doesn't really work for this image, but it could be something you are interested in. We have some rain. Once again, not quite for this image. However, you can change the brightness of this and change the look of it quite a bit. So maybe go with a look like this, make some adjustments, make it a little bit subtle. So this is just one of many, 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 many different applications you can potentially try out online. Most of them have part of the application for free. A lot of the things I'm using here is free, so you don't have to bother paying for anything. And again, you just go ahead and export the image. So those are some of the settings that you can play around with your phone. Some of the options that you can play around with the third-party applications. There's quite a few of them. I'm a big fan of the Lightroom options when it comes to changing the specific colors. You have different options. When it comes to effects, you have tons and tons of different applications. These are just the ones I use on day-to-day basis. All right. So again, that was our little quick session here today, a quick overview. Again, this is a 1 hour session here. It's quick. I wanted to leave 15 minutes here at the end of the day for any questions that you guys might have, something you'd like to discuss, anything at all. But hopefully you start taking better pictures. Be creative. Okay, everybody takes a picture from their shoulder, and we see those images all the time. So be creative. Get on your knees, move a little bit, put some foreground elements, adjust the background. Take seconds to potentially open your blinds, create more light into your images, and just allows you to take and potentially share better pictures for your family members, your friends, or your social media.
Quick question, Mike.
Go ahead.
The last app you use for adding rain, what is the name of the app?
So the application is called Lens Distortion. You can actually download it for free.
Perfect. Thank you.
Very good. Lens Distortion. Rob, thank you. Very good. I guess you can use me now as an excuse to upgrade your phone. Anyone else has any comments? Anything you'd like to discuss? So this is just a quick little session that we did for you guys for free. Again, want to thank you guys for joining us here today. We offer obviously a lot of different courses, the full day courses. Mostly they're full day courses that are available online. You can access them at any point in time. You can go to elco.ca and register or just take a look at any course that we offer. We obviously deliver online sessions like today so that you don't have to go anywhere. So a quick thank you to all of you. If you have any questions, stick around. If not, you guys have a wonderful rest of the day and stay healthy.